Throughout history, espionage has been called the world's second oldest profession, requiring intelligence, training, discretion, and the ability to maintain cover identities under pressure. Then there were these spies, who proved that wearing disguises doesn't make you good at espionage, and that the most effective counterintelligence strategy is sometimes just letting enemy agents expose themselves through spectacular incompetence. Buckle up for a masterclass in how to fail at being a secret agent. 1. During the Cold War, a KGB agent was sent to infiltrate American society using a carefully constructed cover identity as a small business owner. The operation was going perfectly until the spy applied for a business loan and accidentally listed his real address in Moscow instead of his fake American address on the application forms, apparently forgetting which country he was supposed to be from. The bank flagged the application when they noticed the address was in the Soviet Union, contacted the FBI, and the spy's cover was completely blown by a simple paperwork error. The agent was arrested and deported after years of training, and preparation were ruined by mixing up his real and fake addresses on a loan application, demonstrating that even elite spies can be undone by basic form-filling mistakes. 2. A Chinese intelligence officer working undercover in the United States maintained his cover identity successfully for 3 years until he posted photos from a vacation to Beijing on his Facebook account under his fake American identity. The problem was his cover story claimed he'd never been to China and had no connection to Asia. Intelligence analysts monitoring his social media noticed the photos of him visiting Chinese government buildings and posing with what appeared to be Chinese military officers, which seemed inconsistent with his claimed background as someone who'd never left the United States. His cover was blown because he forgot that social media posts are public and that spies probably shouldn't document their trips to their actual home countries while pretending to be from different countries. The officer was expelled after proving that you can have extensive spy training but still not understand Facebook privacy settings or the basic concept of maintaining consistent cover stories. 3. During World War II, a Nazi spy parachuted into England with forged documents and a cover story about being a refugee. His cover was immediately blown when British authorities noticed he was wearing a German-made watch, had German cigarettes in his pocket, was carrying German money, and his British clothing had German manufacturer labels sewn inside. The spy had apparently not considered that wearing entirely German products might undermine his claim to be a British citizen, and his mission failed before it began, because he'd literally dressed himself in evidence of his actual nationality. He was arrested within hours of landing, and British intelligence marveled at how someone trained in espionage could overlook something as obvious as checking his clothes and possessions for identifying markers. 4. A Russian spy living undercover in suburban America maintained perfect cover for years until neighbors noticed she was shoveling snow from her driveway in the middle of summer. When questioned, the spy claimed she was practicing and staying in shape, which raised suspicions because shoveling invisible snow is not normal suburban behavior. Further investigation revealed her entire operation, and her cover was blown because she apparently missed the memo about how normal Americans behave, and that practicing snow shoveling in July makes you look suspicious rather than dedicated. The incident became legendary in counterintelligence circles as an example of how cultural misunderstandings can expose even long-term deep cover agents. 5. An MI6 agent working undercover in Eastern Europe during the Cold War blew his own cover by loudly complaining in English about the quality of local coffee while standing in line at a store, forgetting he was supposed to be a local who spoke only the native language. Multiple witnesses heard him speaking perfect English with a British accent, while his cover identity claimed he'd never left the country and spoke no English. His cover was immediately compromised, and he had to be extracted within days after years of establishing his identity were destroyed by one moment of coffee-related frustration. The agent later admitted he'd just really missed good British tea and had a moment of weakness that cost an entire intelligence operation. 6. A CIA operative working undercover as a businessman in Moscow maintained excellent operational security except for one problem. He kept attending embassy parties hosted by the American embassy, despite his cover story claiming he had no American connections. Russian intelligence photographed him at multiple embassy events, socializing with known American intelligence officers, which seemed inconsistent with his cover as someone with no American ties. His cover was blown when Russian counterintelligence compiled a photo album of him attending American functions and asked him to explain why a supposed local businessman spent so much time at American embassy parties. The operative was expelled after demonstrating that attending your own country's embassy parties while undercover is probably poor tradecraft. 7. During the 1980s, an East German spy living in West Germany under deep cover blew his identity by winning a regional chess championship and having his photo published in local newspapers. The problem was he was using a different name than his cover identity because he'd forgotten to register for the tournament under his fake name. When the newspaper published his victory using his real name alongside his photo, intelligence services quickly connected his real identity to his cover identity, and his entire spy network was compromised. His chess skills were excellent, but his operational security was terrible, and his cover was destroyed because he wanted trophy recognition more than he wanted to remain a secret agent. 8. A Soviet spy working as a diplomat in Washington, D.C. during the Cold War accidentally left classified documents in a taxi after a night of drinking. The taxi driver found the documents, realized they contained sensitive information about American military installations, and turned them over to the FBI. The documents had the spy's real name and embassy phone number written on them, making identification extremely easy. His cover as a cultural attaché was blown when it became obvious that cultural attachés don't typically carry detailed maps of American military bases with notes in Russian. The spy was declared persona non grata and expelled, having learned that drinking and espionage don't mix well, and that leaving classified materials in taxis is grounds for career termination. 9. An American spy operating in East Germany maintained excellent cover until he forgot he was supposed to be German and instinctively looked the wrong direction when crossing a street, following American traffic patterns instead of German ones. A counterintelligence officer watching him noticed this unconscious behavior and began investigating, eventually uncovering his entire cover identity. The spy's cover was blown by muscle memory and ingrained traffic habits he couldn't suppress even after years of training, proving that sometimes the smallest behavioral tells can expose even well-trained operatives. He had to be extracted after something as simple as looking left instead of right, while crossing streets revealed he wasn't who he claimed to be. 10. A Chinese intelligence officer working undercover in Silicon Valley successfully infiltrated a technology company until he accidentally sent an email intended for his handler to his American boss instead. The email contained detailed information about stolen intellectual property and his progress in intelligence gathering operations. His cover was immediately blown when his boss received an email that began "Comrade Handler" and detailed ongoing espionage operations. The spy was arrested within hours, having demonstrated that even sophisticated intelligence operations can be undone by basic email mistakes and not double-checking recipient fields before sending incriminating messages. 11. During World War I, a German spy in Britain maintained perfect cover until he ordered a pint of beer at a pub and paid with German currency, apparently forgetting that British pubs prefer British money. The bartender alerted authorities when a supposed Englishman tried to pay for beer with German marks. An investigation quickly revealed the spy's true identity. His cover was blown by using the wrong currency at the wrong time, and he was arrested for espionage after his attempt to buy beer revealed his nationality more effectively than any counterintelligence investigation. The incident proved that even spies need to check which currency is in their pockets before attempting to maintain cover identities. 12. A Russian spy living in America under deep cover blew his identity by filing tax returns that listed his occupation as undercover intelligence officer instead of his cover job. The IRS flagged the unusual occupation listing and contacted the FBI, leading to investigation and exposure of his entire operation. His cover was destroyed by his own tax return honesty, and he was arrested after proving that even spies have to file taxes, but should probably list their cover jobs rather than their actual professions. The incident became a training example of what not to do when filing taxes under cover identities. 13. An Israeli intelligence officer working undercover in Syria maintained perfect operational security until he got homesick and sent a postcard to his family in Israel from Damascus, with the return address being his cover address in Syria. Syrian intelligence intercepted the postcard, traced the sender, and his cover was blown by his desire to stay in touch with family. The operative was arrested and later executed, and his tragic case became a lesson in why intelligence officers under deep cover should avoid all contact with home countries and why homesickness can be literally deadly in espionage. The postcard that exposed him is now kept in Syrian intelligence archives as a training example. 14. A CIA agent working undercover in Cuba during the 1960s blew his cover by continually complaining about Cuban food and asking locals where he could find American hamburgers and hot dogs. His constant requests for American food and criticism of Cuban cuisine made locals suspicious that he might not be the Cuban national he claimed to be. His cover was eventually blown when Cuban intelligence compiled reports from multiple witnesses about the Cuban man who seemed to hate Cuban food and constantly want American meals. The agent had to be extracted after proving that food preferences can be powerful indicators of nationality, and that maintaining cover requires accepting local cuisine even when you miss home cooking. 15. During the Cold War, a Soviet spy in London maintained his cover until he was caught speaking Russian in his sleep at a boarding house where he lived. His landlady overheard him and reported him to authorities, who investigated and discovered his true identity. His cover was blown by something he had no conscious control over, and he was arrested because his subconscious mind spoke his native language while his conscious mind maintained his cover story. The case became famous in intelligence circles as an example of why deep cover agents should live alone and avoid situations where unconscious behaviors might expose them. 16. An American intelligence officer working undercover in Moscow blew his cover by jogging every morning in a tracksuit that had FBI Academy Quantico printed on it, apparently forgetting that wearing clothing identifying your actual employer undermines cover identities. Russian counterintelligence photographed him jogging in his FBI gear and questioned why a supposed businessman was wearing American law enforcement training clothing. His cover was destroyed by his choice of exercise wear, and he was expelled after demonstrating that checking your wardrobe for identifying information is important when working undercover. 17. A British spy operating in Germany during World War II maintained his cover until he ordered tea in a restaurant and became visibly upset when it was served German style rather than British style. His complaints about improper tea preparation and his detailed instructions about how tea should actually be made raised suspicions, because his cover identity was supposed to be German, and Germans generally don't have strong opinions about British tea customs. His cover was blown by his tea preferences, and he was arrested after proving that passionate opinions about beverage preparation can reveal nationality. The incident became known in MI6 as the tea incident, and was used in training to illustrate how cultural habits can expose agents. 18. A Chinese spy working undercover as a student in the United States blew her cover by accidentally leaving her laptop open in a library with files clearly labeled Intelligence Gathering Operation and Classified Material Collection visible on the screen. Another student noticed the suspicious file names and reported her to university security, who contacted the FBI. Her cover was destroyed by poor operational security and failure to close her laptop or use discrete file names, and she was deported after demonstrating that spies should probably not label their espionage files with obvious names or leave computers unattended in public places. 19. During the Cold War, a Soviet spy working as a journalist in Washington, D.C. maintained his cover until he forgot his own fake birthday during a dinner party conversation. When pressed about his age, he gave an age inconsistent with his cover identity's birth date, and guests noticed the mathematical discrepancy. Follow-up investigation revealed other inconsistencies in his cover story, and his identity was eventually exposed. His cover was blown by inability to remember basic biographical details of his fake identity, proving that memorizing cover stories is crucial, and that forgetting your own fake birthday can unravel years of careful identity construction. 20. A German spy in Britain during World War II blew his cover by reflexively raising his arm in a Nazi salute when he heard German music playing on a radio in a public park, forgetting he was supposed to be British, and that British people don't perform Nazi salutes in public places during wartime. Witnesses reported his suspicious behavior to police immediately. An investigation revealed his true identity through document examination and interrogation. His cover was destroyed by an automatic gesture he couldn't control in the moment of hearing familiar music, and he was arrested after proving that ingrained behaviors from training or culture can surface unexpectedly and expose agents who aren't consciously monitoring their every action every moment. The case became an example of how cultural training and automatic responses can betray even careful spies, and how maintaining cover requires constant vigilance over every gesture, reaction, and automatic response that might reveal true nationality or loyalties. 21. An Iranian intelligence officer working undercover in Europe blew his cover by posting workout photos on Instagram, showing himself exercising at a gym that was located inside an Iranian intelligence facility that had been identified through satellite imagery. Social media analysts working for Western intelligence noticed the distinctive background features in his photos matched satellite images of known intelligence buildings, and his cover was compromised when they traced his social media accounts back to his cover identity. His cover identity as a businessman was destroyed by his desire to show off his fitness progress on social media and document his workout routine, and he was expelled after demonstrating that posting gym selfies from inside intelligence facilities is extremely poor operational security. The incident led to new training about social media use and the importance of being aware of your surroundings when taking photos, especially avoiding any photos that might reveal your actual workplace or location. His Instagram account with months of geotagged workout photos from inside Iranian intelligence buildings became a case study in what not to do on social media while operating undercover. 22. A North Korean spy living in South Korea maintained her cover successfully for several years until she went to the emergency room for appendicitis, and medical records revealed she had no childhood vaccination records, no birth certificate, no medical history consistent with someone who'd grown up in South Korea, and no documented medical care before age 25. Hospital administrators became suspicious when they couldn't find any childhood medical records or vaccination history, and contacted authorities as required when documentation seemed falsified or missing. Investigation discovered her true identity through fingerprint analysis and background checking. Her cover was blown by medical documentation she couldn't fake completely and hadn't anticipated needing, and she was arrested after proving that maintaining cover identities requires preparing for medical emergencies, and that appendicitis doesn't respect operational security or spy schedules. The case led to changes in how North Korean intelligence prepared medical histories for deep cover agents, and the importance of creating comprehensive documentation that could withstand scrutiny from medical professionals and administrative staff. 23. During the 1970s, a CIA officer working undercover in South America blew his cover by paying for everything with crisp, sequential numbered US $100 bills that had been freshly printed and clearly came directly from the same source without any circulation. Local merchants noticed the pattern of brand new American currency with sequential serial numbers and reported it to police as suspicious activity, who investigated why a supposed local businessman had access to brand new American currency in sequential numbers that appeared to come directly from government sources. His cover was destroyed by his money supply being too obviously from a single institutional source, probably the CIA, and he had to be extracted after demonstrating that spies should vary their currency sources, use circulated bills, and not spend money that looks like it came straight from government printing presses. The incident led to new protocols about currency distribution to field agents, and the importance of using money that appears to have normal circulation patterns rather than fresh from the printer bills that attract attention. 24. A Russian spy in America maintained his cover for years until he took his car to a mechanic for routine maintenance, and the mechanic noticed the car's vehicle identification number had been altered or tampered with during inspection. The mechanic reported the altered VIN to police, as he was legally required to do, who investigated and discovered the car was registered under a false identity with falsified documentation, leading to exposure of the entire operation, including the spy's network and communication methods. His cover was blown by vehicle documentation he hadn't properly prepared or hadn't realized would be inspected during routine maintenance, and he was arrested after proving that maintaining cover requires attention to details like vehicle paperwork and that mechanics notice altered VINs as part of their standard inspection procedures. The case became an example of how routine civilian activities like car maintenance can expose intelligence operations and the importance of ensuring all documentation can withstand scrutiny from civilians who aren't looking for spies, but might notice irregularities in normal business transactions. 25. An East German spy working in West Germany during the Cold War blew his cover by repeatedly asking locals for directions to locations that any actual local would know how to find, including basic landmarks, government buildings, and neighborhoods that were common knowledge. His constant need for directions to common places raised suspicions that he wasn't actually from the area he claimed to be from, and multiple people reported the local resident who seemed completely unfamiliar with his supposed hometown. His cover was compromised when counterintelligence compiled reports from multiple witnesses about someone claiming to be local, but asking for directions to basic locations. An investigation revealed his true identity through surveillance and document analysis. The spy learned that extensive local knowledge is crucial for cover stories, that asking for too many directions reveals unfamiliarity with claimed home territories, and that memorizing maps and locations is as important as memorizing your cover story biography. His case led to more extensive geographic training for agents being deployed under deep cover, including detailed knowledge of local streets, landmarks, and common destinations. 26. A Chinese intelligence officer working undercover in Australia blew his cover by accidentally answering his phone in Mandarin while sitting in a cafe, forgetting momentarily that his cover identity was supposed to be an Australian businessman who spoke only English and had no connection to China. Multiple witnesses heard him speaking Mandarin fluently and conducting what appeared to be a business conversation, which contradicted his cover story completely. One witness who spoke Mandarin understood he was discussing intelligence operations and collection targets. His cover was destroyed by answering his phone without thinking about maintaining his cover persona, and he was expelled after demonstrating that phone calls can expose spies who forget to maintain their cover identities when taking calls in public places. The incident led to new training about always maintaining cover regardless of circumstances, and the importance of screening calls before answering in public places where witnesses might overhear and understand conversations in languages your cover identity supposedly doesn't speak. 27. During World War II, a Japanese spy in Hawaii maintained his cover successfully until he was caught taking photographs of Pearl Harbor with a camera that had Japanese military markings and serial numbers on it, using equipment that was clearly military issue. When questioned about why he was photographing military installations, he claimed to be a tourist interested in ships and naval architecture, but the military-marked camera contradicted his story completely. His cover was blown by using equipment that identified his actual affiliations and nationality, and he was arrested before the Pearl Harbor attack, after proving that using military equipment while pretending to be a civilian tourist is ineffective espionage tradecraft. The camera itself became evidence at his trial, with prosecutors using the military markings to demonstrate he was working for Japanese intelligence. His case became an example of the importance of using civilian equipment for civilian cover identities and ensuring all possessions match your supposed background and story. 28. A French intelligence officer working undercover in North Africa blew his cover by instinctively responding in perfect French to a question asked in French when he was supposed to only speak Arabic under his cover identity as a local merchant. He answered fluently before realizing his mistake and catching himself, but witnesses noticed that someone who claimed to speak no French had just responded in perfect French without hesitation. His cover was compromised by automatic language response he couldn't control in the moment, and he had to be extracted quickly after demonstrating that language training must include training to not respond in languages your cover identity shouldn't speak. The incident became a training example about the importance of conscious language control and the dangers of automatic responses that can surface when you're surprised or not paying attention. His handlers were particularly frustrated because the question had been a test by local counterintelligence who suspected his identity and deliberately spoke French to see if he would respond. 29. A Soviet spy living in New York during the 1950s maintained his cover until he was caught measuring buildings and infrastructure using the metric system in a country that used imperial measurements, marking distances in meters and heights in centimeters. His use of metric measurements and obvious unfamiliarity with feet and inches raised suspicions among witnesses who noticed his measurement notations, An investigation revealed his cover and his intelligence gathering activities. His cover was blown by measurement system preferences that revealed his foreign origin and training, and he was arrested after proving that understanding local measurement systems is important for maintaining cover, and that using centimeters in a feet and inches country makes you suspicious. The detailed architectural drawings he'd created using metric measurements became evidence of his espionage activities, and his case led to training about adopting all aspects of local culture, including measurement systems and units that might seem trivial, but can expose foreign nationals. 30. An American spy in Eastern Europe during the Cold War blew his cover by tipping generously at restaurants, when tipping wasn't customary in the local culture and was actually seen as insulting or confusing. His American tipping habits made him stand out significantly, and his consistent over-tipping raised questions about where he was from, why he behaved differently from locals, and what his actual background was. His cover was eventually compromised when counterintelligence officers compiled reports about a supposed local who tipped like an American. An investigation revealed his true identity through surveillance and analysis. The spy learned that economic behaviors and tipping customs vary significantly by culture, that maintaining cover requires adopting local financial practices, and that being generous in ways that are culturally inappropriate can attract as much attention as being rude. His case became an example of how small economic behaviors can reveal nationality and the importance of understanding local customs around money, service, and social interactions. 31. A Pakistani intelligence officer working undercover in India maintained his cover until he forgot which country's Independence Day he was supposed to celebrate. When colleagues invited him to Independence Day celebrations, he initially showed confusion about the date, then tried to cover by claiming he forgot what day it was. His hesitation about a major national holiday he should have known raised suspicions. An investigation eventually exposed his identity. His cover was blown by not knowing basic information about his cover nationality's history, proving that spies need to memorize important dates and cultural knowledge about their assumed identities. 32. During the Cold War, a Western spy in Moscow blew his cover by repeatedly returning to the same dead drop location in a park, not realizing Russian intelligence had noticed the pattern and was monitoring him. His predictable behavior and inability to vary his operational patterns made surveillance easy, and he was arrested after Russian officers simply waited at the dead drop location he kept visiting. His cover was destroyed by operational predictability, and he was imprisoned after demonstrating that spies need to vary their behaviors and locations to avoid pattern recognition by counterintelligence. 33. A Mossad agent working undercover in Lebanon maintained his cover until he got into an argument with someone and instinctively cursed in Hebrew before catching himself. Witnesses heard him speak Hebrew, which raised questions about his claimed identity, and Lebanese intelligence investigated. His cover was eventually blown after the Hebrew curse word led to scrutiny of his background, and he had to be extracted after proving that stress can make people revert to native languages and that maintaining cover requires controlling language even in emotional situations. 34. A Cuban intelligence officer working undercover in Miami blew his cover by filing an insurance claim that listed his real Cuban address instead of his cover address in Miami. The insurance company contacted him about the discrepancy, and when he claimed it was a typo, they noticed all his documents had similar typos listing Cuban addresses. His cover was destroyed by paperwork inconsistencies he couldn't explain, and he was arrested after demonstrating that maintaining consistent false documentation is crucial, and that insurance claims require careful review before submission. 35. An intelligence officer from an unnamed Middle Eastern country working undercover in Europe maintained his cover until airport security found his diplomatic passport hidden in a secret compartment in his luggage alongside his cover identity passport. When questioned about why he had two passports, he couldn't provide a convincing explanation. His cover was blown by failing to hide his real passport better and by traveling with documentation that contradicted his cover story. He was expelled after proving that spies should probably not carry evidence of their real identities when traveling undercover identities. 36. A Chinese spy working as a researcher in an American laboratory blew his cover by accessing classified files at 3 a.m. multiple nights in a row, not realizing his access was being logged and monitored. Security analysts noticed the pattern of late-night access to sensitive materials and investigated. His cover was compromised when they discovered he was accessing and copying files unrelated to his research work, and he was arrested after demonstrating that digital surveillance can track suspicious access patterns, and that spying at 3 a.m. doesn't make you invisible to security systems. 37. During the Cold War, a spy working undercover in Western Europe maintained his cover until he received a birthday card addressed to his real name at his cover address. The postal worker noticed the name discrepancy and reported it to authorities, who investigated why someone was receiving mail under different names. His cover was blown by a birthday card sent by someone who didn't know he was undercover, and he had to be extracted after proving that family and friends need to be informed about cover identities or instructed to cease all contact. 38. A Russian intelligence officer in London blew his cover by being photographed meeting with known Russian intelligence officers at a restaurant. British counterintelligence had the restaurant under surveillance and photographed him having dinner with people he claimed not to know. His cover was destroyed by poor operational security and meeting with compromised contacts in public places, and he was expelled after demonstrating that spies should avoid being photographed with other spies when trying to maintain cover identities. 39. An American spy in China maintained his cover until he was caught with a GPS device that had waypoints marked for sensitive military installations saved in memory. When Chinese authorities examined the device during a random security check, they found his saved locations included missile bases and military headquarters. His cover was blown by not clearing his GPS history, and he was imprisoned after proving that electronic devices store evidence of where you've been and what you're interested in, making them security risks for intelligence operations. 40. A North Korean operative working in South Korea blew her cover by consistently using North Korean dialect words and phrases that South Koreans don't use. Linguistic experts noticed her unusual word choices and accent variations that marked her as someone from North Korea rather than South Korea. Her cover was compromised by language patterns she couldn't fully suppress despite training, and she was arrested after proving that dialects and regional language differences can expose spies even when they speak the same language as their cover identity. 41. During the 1980s, a Soviet spy in Washington, D.C. maintained his cover until he was caught trying to buy specialized radio equipment that had no civilian use. The store owner became suspicious and contacted the FBI, who investigated and discovered the spy's identity. His cover was blown by attempting to purchase equipment that contradicted his cover story, and he was arrested after demonstrating that buying spy equipment while pretending not to be a spy raises obvious questions. 42. An intelligence officer working undercover in Southeast Asia blew his cover by wearing an expensive watch that cost more than his cover job supposedly paid in several years. Colleagues noticed the discrepancy between his claimed salary and his luxury accessories, raising questions about his real income sources. His cover was compromised when investigators calculated that his lifestyle exceeded his supposed earnings, and he was expelled after proving that financial inconsistencies can expose cover identities and that spies should match their spending to their cover professions. 43. A spy working undercover in the Middle East maintained his cover until he was caught praying facing the wrong direction during religious observances. Local Muslims noticed he was facing the wrong way and that his prayer rituals seemed unfamiliar, suggesting he wasn't actually Muslim despite his cover identity claiming he was. His cover was blown by religious practices he hadn't properly learned, and he had to be extracted after demonstrating that religious cover identities require extensive cultural and ritual knowledge that's difficult to fake convincingly. 44. A Chinese intelligence officer in Silicon Valley blew his cover by asking coworkers extremely specific technical questions about classified projects during casual conversations. His questions were so detailed and targeted that security officers noticed he was systematically gathering information about restricted programs. His cover was compromised when analysts reviewed his questions and realized they formed a comprehensive intelligence collection operation, and he was arrested after proving that spies need to be subtle about information gathering and that asking too many specific questions about classified topics makes your intentions obvious. 45. And finally, there's the Russian spy who lived undercover in suburban America for over a decade, maintained perfect operational security, successfully gathered intelligence, avoided all surveillance, and then completely blew his cover by uploading a YouTube video showing himself in his basement spy equipment room, while complaining about not getting promoted by Moscow Center. The video showed shelves of encryption devices, hidden cameras, fake passports, and spy equipment, while he ranted about being underappreciated by his handlers. Someone who saw the video contacted the FBI, and his entire operation was exposed by his need to vent frustrations on social media, without considering that YouTube videos are public, and that filming yourself surrounded by spy equipment while complaining about your spy job might expose you as a spy. The FBI arrested him after watching his YouTube confession, finding all the equipment he'd shown in the video exactly where he'd filmed it. His cover was destroyed by creating video evidence of his own espionage operation, and he was imprisoned after proving that even decades of successful spying can be undone by posting one angry YouTube video. The video became a training tool for counterintelligence services worldwide as the ultimate example of operational security failure, and intelligence agencies now include social media awareness in basic spy training, specifically using this case as an example of what happens when operational frustrations meet social media platforms. Here's the brutal truth about espionage. Being a successful spy requires constant vigilance, perfect memory, cultural knowledge, and the ability to maintain false identities under pressure without making mistakes. These failed spies prove that extensive training can be undone by simple mistakes, that the smallest details can expose carefully constructed cover stories, and that the best counterintelligence is sometimes just waiting for enemy spies to blow their own covers through incompetence, carelessness, or really poor judgment about what to post on social media. The real secret was the operational security they never maintained along the way. Turns out that being a spy is difficult when you forget your fake name, use the wrong currency, post incriminating content online, or film yourself in your spy equipment room complaining about work. History's lesson is clear. Espionage requires more than just training and equipment. It requires constant attention to detail, cultural awareness, perfect memory, and understanding that every action matters when maintaining cover identities. These spies learned the hard way that one mistake can destroy years of work, that social media and espionage don't mix, and that maintaining cover requires more than just saying you're someone else. It requires living convincingly as someone else without ever breaking character. Subscribe if you want more stories about professionals who were spectacularly bad at their jobs, and remember that sometimes the most effective defense against espionage isn't sophisticated counterintelligence. It's just enemy spies who can't remember their own cover stories, forget which country they're from, or decide that posting spy equipment videos on YouTube is a reasonable way to handle workplace frustrations.